Yo, 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 boys and girls, bitches, hoes, men, women, children, whoever you are, everyone's welcomed here. It's your boy Peter here, aka Peter Freakout 10, baby, bringing you guys our episode of Video Game Time, with the good games are always reviewed. Okay, back into our video game review. And it's that time of the year, boys and girls. Guess what that is? We're entering October. ScreamFeast is finally here! Hell yeah! Halloween is around the corner, boys and girls. A time for costumes, candy corn being the hottest thing in the grocery store, the imps to come out and blend into the crowd and kill their target, and of course, horror-themed materialism. Whether it's movies, games, anything of that nature, it's all here, all waiting to be talked about, which is what we're going to do this month. And originally, I wasn't going to make this a part of this series, but the more I thought about it, this game just oozes with the atmosphere for a horror-themed review. This game just has that Halloween feel that I think everybody should be playing around this time. Despite not being completely horror, it does have that DNA of horror in it, and that's what made me decide to review it. And this is a game that needs to be talked about in a time like this, because I cannot go through the rest of this year without reviewing this game. And that's because on today's episode, we're going to be picking up from where we last left off in a game series at this point that I started reviewing a few months ago. And this may seem confusing to some people, as this is a sequel to a game that doesn't really share the same title as its predecessor, but it is set in the same universe. So some may find that confusing, but let me elaborate. A few months ago, I did a review of Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, a game that followed the story of a vampire named Kain, who was originally a human, and is seeking revenge on those who put him in this state in the first place. Now, for what it was, I enjoyed it. It had its kinks, most specifically in the story and some areas of the gameplay, but for what it was, I thought it was a fun ride. I really enjoyed my time with it, and I thought it was a great starting point for the series. If you guys haven't seen that review, I'll post it in the comments, so check it out before you watch this one. Well, now we're talking about the sequel. The much waited on after many delays sequel, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. But how does it all come together after the long wait and the chaos behind the scenes? Well, better get yourself some souls, because we don't drink blood this time, or better yet, some Ecto Cooler High C. Get all the parkour lessons you can learn, maybe rip your jaw off to look like the main character, because we're talking about Soul Reaver. Now, if you guys hear anything in the background, I have some renovating going on that my mother and father are doing downstairs, so if you guys hear anything in the background, just be aware that's what's going on. There's no murdering going on in the house. Now, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, this was a game made in the year 1999, and the developer, whereas the original was developed by Silicon Knights, this time Crystal Dynamics, a company that works in conjunction with Eidos Interactive, who also helped on the first one, basically took over the reins. Now, Crystal Dynamics, this is a company that before this made the Gex trilogy, Pandemonium 1 and 2, and before this they made Akuji the Heartless, which does run on the same engine as this game. And this was released for the PlayStation, which is what I played it on. A month later, be released for the PC, and we have a Dreamcast version around the corner. Now, oh boy, where to start with this development, because my God, a lot of it ties into the unfortunate circumstances that tied into the deteriorating relationship between Crystal Dynamics and Silicon Knights, and it led to a clusterfuck that would make Alien 3's production look organized. And in order to talk about how messy it is and was, we have to go back to the beginning, back to where the match was lit and the fire started, to where it is now. Now, after the release of Blood Omen Legacy of Kain and it being the hit that it was for the company, in 1997, a year later, Silicon Knights was looking to get a sequel going. And the original idea was that it was going to play very similarly to Blood Omen. And they were planning on making the story explore more of the character of Vorador more. Around this time, though, Crystal Dynamics were already getting ready to get another game outlined in the form of Shifter, a game that itself was being headed by Amy Hennig, who had a hand in Blood Omen. And this is important to note because the story itself of Shifter carries a huge resemblance to that of the final product of Soul Reaver, with the main character even being named Raziel. The game had similar story beats, and it had the shifting between two planes mechanic that you see in this game. But the original Kain was actually this bat-like creature called the Master that looked a bit like Man-Bat from Batman. That had gone a good chunk of the way through production and even going as far as to prototype the final game in October of that year. Then, right in the middle of Shifter's development, the executives of Crystal Dynamics saw that because Amy and a few of the members of Blood Omen's development team were involved with Shifter, and they decided to change gears. But I could also see that this is also because around this time, Crystal Dynamics and Silicon Knights' relationship at this point was really starting to become sour. Something of which I pointed out in my review of Blood Omen. They probably didn't want to deal with that again. I think also, to point out how bad it was, I thought it was just be like, oh, they had a quick disagreements. No, it was worse because after that, I learned that during their time working at that studio, because after that review, I learned even more that during their time working with them, arguments got so bad between both groups that the police had to be called to the scene to work things out. So that could have played a part. But they saw this as an opportunity to tie that game's world into the world of Legacy of Kain. And they went behind Dennis's back and had Crystal Dynamics develop their own sequel, replacing the original character, the Master, with Kain and creating the Raziel we have now. The story itself would be written by Amy Hennig herself. She wanted to build upon the themes that were already established in Blood Omen while also exploring new themes. The main one in particular being free will and can it exist in a universe opposed to fate, while also creating a new arc for this version of Raziel, basing him on the work of T.S. Eliot and James Joyce. With the new script approved, Crystal Dynamics greenlit the new version and gave them a budget of about $8 million. Because they had thrown the original idea of sticking to Blood Omen 2's top-down, old-school Zelda gameplay, and they were going into 3D territory, they took inspiration from Ocarina of Time as they saw the evolution that that game took with the series. They also used Tomb Raider as inspiration for the gameplay when it came to certain areas, in particular the moments involving platforming and puzzle solving, all of which would be brought to life through the Gex 3 engine. And when designing the world of the game and its characters, they drew influence from John Milton's poem Paradise Lost, which plays into a particular portion of the gameplay. But they also drew influence from other various forms of media with vampire movies such as Blade, great choice, can't wait for Blade 2, Interview with the Vampire, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Nosferatu, Near Dark. They also took influences from comic books as well as the characters in those comics, in particular Spider-Man, and the works of Hayao Miyazaki. The team also researched biblical lore, Eastern myth, and mysticism, as well as steampunk and goth culture when bringing the world to life. Crystal Dynamics was pleased with how Amy was able to handle the production, and even when they were bought out by Eidos, they never interfered during the development. But oh boy, was a big storm around the corner. The game was nearly close to completion in 1998 with an intended release of October of that year. That year they had shown the game off at E3 and a lot of people were really excited. But then the problem started. As this game, as I said, it's most infamous for its delays. As when they were making it, the game wasn't fully completed, and Crystal and Eidos were pushing her to preview the game early. Not helping matters is the fact that it's rumored that the game itself was so overly ambitious, and the power of the PS1 couldn't handle the original vision. But there was also the big one, the lawsuit. So, you know what that means. It's time to go back to video game court. Now, I touched upon this in my review for the first game, so I won't be as long with it, or at least I'll try not to. But long story short, Dennis dumbass Dyack got word on the new direction, and him and Silicon Knights sued Crystal Dynamics, alleging they had broken a non-disclosure agreement, with them feeling they plagiarized their game Blood Omen despite working in conjunction with them. The lawsuit put such a damper on the team that in March of 1999, a full 5 months after the game was supposed to be out, producer Andrew Bennett had to finish the game, which meant the team had to take a chainsaw to the game's original vision and cut 4 to 5 hours of gameplay to meet the deadline, which you can thank Eidos for as they rescued the game. But these included various enemy types they had planned, particular power-ups, as there were originally supposed to be more glyphs that you could get, as opposed to just the 4 in this game. Levels that were supposed to have more to explore were trimmed down. Levels themselves were deleted, such as the Silence Cathedral was supposed to have more to explore, but that was shrunk down. The Lost City was outright deleted. More melee weapons that were supposed to be in there, and even the original ending had to be changed. It was supposed to just end the game entirely. Like, they gutted and butchered this game like a fish. That it's amazing it even got out. But they managed to reach an agreement in the lawsuit, which allowed them to finish the game and have promotion, as this is what Dennis was trying to take down with the lawsuit as well. And just to show how big Crystal Dynamics viewed this game and the big thing they saw this game as, they really wanted this game to make an entrance. So they spent over $4 million on a pre-release marketing campaign for this game. Starting off, Top Cow, the comic book company behind The Darkness, Witchblade, and Tomb Raider, was put in charge of doing a comic book tie-in, detailing what happened before the events of the game, which I have right here. It's a great comic. The art is amazing. If you guys have not read it, give it a read. It's a fantastic comic. Top Cow does amazing jobs with their comic books, and that's one of them. And I'm glad that they have a Soul Reaver comic. Their style fits it perfectly. Magazine adverts were plastered all over the place. You couldn't open up a Maxim issue without seeing that, or Shadow Man. There's also TV ads that I find awesome, where you have someone doing something that gets them killed. Like one in particular has this guy in a bathtub and a radio falls into it, or a guy sets himself on fire trying to cook ribs and they'll say, moron, but at least he got to keep his soul. And another reason they chose the month of August is because it was finding its footing again with horror. Some of the horror movies coming out, like Deep Blue Sea, The Blair Witch Project, they even got Stir of Echoes out that month. And also, they partnered with EB Games to create toys. All that aside, though, after months of waiting and anticipation, the game was finally released on August 16, 1999, and it was a huge hit for the company. I can't find any statistics for the sales on that day or around that time, but it definitely sold a lot and much more than Blood Omen. The game also received critical acclaim, with the PlayStation version getting a 91 on Metacritic. While it doesn't have a ranking for the PC version, on Games Ranking it gave it a 78. Critics praised the game for its dark and gothic atmosphere, the shifting between realms element of the gameplay, the game's graphics and puzzles, while some criticized the save system, some with the difficulty, and there's also some that didn't like the ending. The PC version was also criticized, as they felt it was just an upscale PS1 version, especially in regards to the control. Nevertheless, the audience themselves seemed to really love this game, and it's gone on to become one of the go-to games to get if you want a PlayStation. Now, this is a game that I've been anticipating playing for such a long time. In fact, the reason I even pushed myself to try Blood Omen was because of this game. And I wanted to get the full story of the world of Nosgoth and how it came to where it was. Even with all the delays, and you had those people who would come up to me telling me it looks repetitive, I don't know why you're excited, with some even saying Blood Omen looks better, which after playing it, I question those people and their patience with this game. I think what also interested me, besides the vampire kick I was in thanks to Blade and the fact that it looked more like my type of game as opposed to Soul Reaver, and just hearing about how Ocarina of Time was an influence on this game, which I also love. I was drawn into that, which, by the way, the Ocarina of Time Let's Play will continue soon. Just have some stuff I want to do. And also putting myself in the Legacy of Kain fan base group online, and the fans who have been really nice to me, as they waited with me for months before I actually got around to playing it. I was really excited. I picked it up with the comic book and read the comic right before I got the game, and I streamed myself playing it with their help. And let me come out and say it. If you haven't played this game, what the fuck are you doing? Soul Reaver is beyond any sort of game I've ever played in my entire life. And it should be a top priority to play for anybody who hasn't played this game yet. I will explain later because there's a lot to talk about, but let it be known, this is just such an intriguing and just immersive game that you just become lost in it. Nothing around your life matters, and it's the example of a fantasy novel that you can't put down till it's over. Now, the plot of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver is it basically takes place over 1,000 years after the events of Blood Omen. It basically makes the evil ending the canon ending, where we see Kain, once again voiced by Simon Templeman, has managed to overtake Nosgoth and has built up his own vampire army. Now, this is where this game comes into play, where basically you assume the role of a character named Raziel, played by Michael Bell, who basically serves as Kain's lieutenant and has basically been doing his dirty work for the longest time. But we learn in the game that Raziel has managed to grow wings, which in Kain's eyes is bad for him as he sees that he is evolving ahead of him. Feeling betrayed by this sight, he tears off his wings in a fit of anger and has him killed and thrown into the Lake of the Dead, this abyss in this water where he's tortured and basically reduced to a walking corpse missing a jaw. The torture continues all the while Kain has basically reduced Nosgoth with the help of Raziel's brothers to even more of a decrepit wasteland. And in the midst of his torture, the Elder God, voiced by Tony Jay, resurrects Raziel as a wraith and helps him out of the underworld, where he basically lets him off the leash to go and kill Kain and his brothers. So Raziel is pretty much led into Nosgoth, where he basically has to fight his way through the land while also trying to pry Kain and his brothers' fingers off of areas of Nosgoth by killing him and his brothers. Will Raziel be able to get his vengeance on Kain, or will the wasteland eat whatever meat is left on Raziel? Soul Reaver for me fixes one of the biggest problems that I had with Blood Omen. As I feel for as great as the story is and was in that game, there were many moments with Blood Omen that I really felt weren't as developed as they could have been. As the story always felt like it was on fast forward mode for a good chunk of it, so you never felt like there was any sense of a story sinking in or stopping to let things sink in. And I think a lot of that is helped because Amy Hennig is at the writing helm, and it really showcases her talents. This game puts her talents to the forefront because I think she understands how to develop characters a lot better than the writers in the first one did, and allowing who they are to sink in faster without feeling on fast forward. And a lot of the characters feel like they set themselves in stone a lot better and develop who they are without being confusing on who they are and what they are. So you feel characters are better humanized, and there's a lot more time spent with them, along with them to really showcase who they are as people. I love the Raziel character and the story that she provided for him in particular. I like how the story humanizes him in a way that he isn't just Kain 2.0, and I like the story itself is about him kind of coming home to not only get vengeance, but also see the world that he himself played a part in building up for his master that has now been reduced to rubble. And just the moments you see him walking through this world, monologuing about the sights that he sees and what Kain has turned the world into, with a more empathetic and poetic sense, as opposed to Kain, whose monologues are more insulting and violent, it makes it easier to get behind him, as opposed to Kain, who is easier to get behind to feel a sense of evil. I also really love how the team incorporated aspects of biblical lore into the story, with Raziel being a wraith and losing his wings, and instead of feeding on blood like Kain, he feeds on souls in the underworld, which I think adds to the sympathetic nature of Raziel, so you don't get this violent imagery with his character feeding on blood, and you don't create the image of him being this vicious vampire like you do with Kain. I thought it was a nice change of pace, and I thought it set him apart from the character of Kain, and I like how the game showcases his backstory, which I won't spoil. And you really feel for Raziel as a character, and it really makes you, the player, see what you in the first game helped Kain do, and you yourself feel guilty for it. So overall, while different from Blood Omen, I think it does a great job hanging on to what made that game work, while also expanding and adding new elements that I think expands on the world created in Blood Omen. Now, on a technical side, graphically, this game is top-notch. And I'll be honest, this along with Shadow Man are some of the best looking games of 1999. The transition from top-down 2D with Blood Omen to 3D with this game, I thought was done in the right way. In an age where everything is trying to be Ocarina of Time, I think this is one of the few that does it in the right way. It doesn't use the 3D engine as a gimmick. The game uses the engine to showcase the chaos that Kain caused upon the world and sent it into the state that it's in. Everything tells a story. The only humans that are around are feasted on by the nearby creatures. Temples that you visit have paintings of a prophecy that never got fulfilled, or paintings of a puzzle that you need to solve. The very owner of that temple is painted in a way to showcase his dominance. Every corner you take is brimming with detail. And I love how the game uses its locations to tell a story instead of telling you. There are moments of slight pop-in and or load-up of particular areas, but it's not very often you come across that. And along with that, the game also introduces you to the spectral realm, which is pretty much a distorted dream-like reality that you can go into when you die or when you have to solve a puzzle. I'll get into that when I talk more about gameplay. But this makes the world appear radically different from its original form. In particular, not only do you get a green view of the world like you're in night vision, but you also have like landings that open up that you can land on and climb up. These monuments will make like a bridge that will come out, and the pipes will appear misshapen that you can walk on. And it's a very cool use of the engine. I like how they were able to create this sort of effect with how it transitions into the area and how different it looks with the tipped monuments, the sort of like Dr. Seuss messed up monuments, I have to say. Like a messed up Dr. Seuss is the best way to say it. Along with that, the creatures look really cool. Each area has its own set of creatures, and how they're designed, they put a lot of thought and imagination into them, which also applies to the bosses. There's a sense of intimidation, scale, creativity, and a little bit of a sense of body horror with some of the bosses. And they have designs where you can tell one apart from the other, unlike Blood Omen, where it's hard to tell them apart. Along with that, character models have also seen a massive upgrade as they look a bit more expressive and less mannequin-like, especially with Raziel, who is one of the best designed characters I've seen in a video game, next to Lara Croft herself, and Michael in Shadow Man and Solid Snake. May not be as sexy as Lara Croft, but boy, is he among the best badasses, so gotta give it that. There's so much detail on him too, from the way he moves, the way his body looks, from the torso itself, which basically looks like he basically is an anorexic. It really feels like you're controlling a living, breathing person with a personality. This is also a huge step up over Blood Omen with the voice acting, trumpeting Blood Omen's already fantastic cast. With Raziel's voice being provided by Michael Bell, Chucky Finster's dad from the Rugrats, giving Raziel this tragic, defeated, sympathetic nature to his voice that gives him his identity that he develops as you go through the game. You can see that that's really what the developers were going for with this character, and he does a great job. Simon Templeman is great as Kain. He's not in this one as much as the first. There may have been more moments with him that may have been cut. That's just my theory. But the moments he's there, he does a great job as Kain, being that you're now making him the villain. I think it gives Simon a chance to showcase more of his range as an actor with a villain performance. And he really gives Kain this smooth talking with a hint of sarcasm and narcissism and poeticness to his voice that comes across very Candyman-like in how Tony Todd did it, where in the same way he's embracing what he's become and what he turned the world into. And I think the moments between him and Michael Bell carry some good tension, especially the 2 times you see them together. Tony J is in this one as well. He plays 2 different characters. He's not playing the same ones he did in the first. He plays the Elder God who reawakens Raziel from his torture. Unlike Blood Omen, though, I do feel like he has more to work with this character, despite the character having the same mystery behind him, where you don't know whether he's a good guy or not. But I do think here it's a bit better done, because I like the fact that he serves as the tutorial for this game, and there's small sprinkles here and there that he could be leaning towards good, so I like that more. But he's also the voice of Zephan, one of Raziel's brother, and I think he does a better job there too, distinguishing him from the Elder God. Because in the original, I couldn't tell his voice, the main guy who wakes him up, apart from the boss that you fight later on with him. Could help, because in this game they actually had him using a voice modulator with Zephan, and so that kind of helped, made him sound a bit different. And I like that because it made him sound cool with that demonic side to his voice. And I like the design, too, that they gave him. And his boss is really cool, which I'll get into later. Other actors, you got Anna Gunn reprising her role as Ariel. Like the first game, she's not in this one too much, so don't go in expecting anything deep with her. But the little scene she's in, she does fine. Richard Doyle reprising his role as a certain time dude, which I won't spoil. So all of them contribute to their characters really well, and they do a great job and really give them a personality that helps push the story forward. But in the middle of all that is a great score. Kurt Harlan did a wonderful job with the score. His score gives each level its atmosphere. Kurt gives the game this gothic, moody, and mystique side to the game that sets it apart from other games of a similar category, especially with the opening, Ozar Midar Shirim, which I can't play on here because I know I'll get copyright. But that right there sets the tone for this whole game. And the score fits the tone of the locations you visit, the emotions of the cutscenes, and the danger of the enemies you come across. It's just an amazing score, and definitely, I think, showcases Kurt's work as a composer and the talent that he has. And it's amazing just how much was put into this game with what constraints they had getting it on the PS1. And I think it all came out great. But of course, no review of this game is complete without talking about the gameplay. Like I said in my review of Blood Omen, it played a lot like the old school Zelda games, in particular Zelda 2. This one, though, takes more influence from Ocarina of Time in its approach to the gameplay, where this time it's played from a 3D third-person perspective, and you're set into a huge environment where you basically work your way through it to get to Kain and your brothers and kill them. And you do this with combat, platforming, puzzle solving, and boss battles. In all 3 of these areas, Raziel controls great. There's a great sense of weight and speed in his movements. He never feels janky or weightless, especially in his jumping and landing, which especially you need in a game like this that involves platforming. And much like both Zelda and Shadow Man, there's a bit of Metroidvania elements in this game, as there will be areas you can't advance through yet unless you have a particular ability. These include the abilities to phase through doors, swim, use your claws to climb up rocky surfaces, shoot projectiles, or even set the people the closest to you on fire. And the abilities you get are really cool and definitely benefit you as the game goes along. As you'll see, some locations you'll find yourself falling into water a lot, but once you get the ability to swim, it really makes a huge difference for you. You really get the feeling of Raziel getting stronger with each power he gets in the same way you did in Ocarina of Time. And while the cuts may make the abilities feel somewhat limited, the ones you get really make you feel unstoppable when you get a hold of them. Now, some may be asking, is the combat any good despite the cuts? It's damn good. It's awesome, I should say. The combat is a huge improvement over Blood Omen in my eyes. I love the fact that the game here encourages you at the beginning and throughout the game to use the environment to your advantage. For example, in terms of melee weapons, you can use your claws to beat down your opponents, but they're not going to go down too easy, as you can't just be whacking away at them with your claws. That won't be enough, as you have to do a finishing move on them by using the environment to your advantage. Like, you can lift a guy up and shove him into these antlers, you can throw them into campfires, sunlight, or even have them take a dip in the water, and once they're dead, you eat their souls. As if you don't eat the souls, basically they'll come back up and look for a fight with you, so the fight will be continuing on. So you'll have to get really creative, which also includes the melee weapons. Like, you can rip a spear off the wall and start whacking at an enemy with it, and when they're in a daze, you can shove the spear through them and lift them up, which looked very gruesome for this sort of game. I mean, this is T for teen, and they get away with a lot in this game, so I appreciate the balls that Amy had with it. But along with that, there's also torches you can take off the wall and set people on fire. You can use rocks and throw them at enemies or beat them with it. Your projectiles, you can shoot at an enemy and shoot them into something. But later on, once you get the Soul Reaver, that will be chained to you, and it has this cool ability where when you're finished whacking away at an enemy with it, you can shove the sword through them and they'll explode into a million pieces. However, you can't just let the person whack the shit out of you, as you will need to basically have your health meter filled up all the way, so you'll have to keep going into the spectral realm and get souls that way, or find souls in the area around you. But with that said, I like this version of the Soul Reaver in this game more than the one in the original. It helps that the updated controls they gave this game and really make it a lot more funner to use and a lot more satisfying. They implemented a lock-on system, so you can lock on to enemies and focus on them as you're fighting them. It feels fast, fluid, and satisfying to get into. I always look forward to using the finishing moves at the end. And along with the combat, there's also puzzle solving, which is a little bit similar to Tomb Raider's puzzle solving, as pretty much you won't be collecting stuff to put into holes and activating the opening of a door or pulling levers. Instead, they rely more on memorization, studying the environment around you, using the spectral realm, and blocks. Lots and lots of blocks. I shit you not. Like, for example, there's this one room where there's these two openings on opposite sides of the room, and there's this huge door in the middle, and it has this symbol on it. Well, you realize in both rooms there are various symbols that a couple of them actually match the door, and there's like these blocks that you have to put into the rooms to match the door before it opens, while also finding a way to get a block across the room to basically put it in, because one of the symbols in the other room is in fact the symbol on the door. There's another one with these symbols on the wall and there's this thing in the middle that spins around. You have to get the symbols to match the ones on the wall. And I like these puzzles because they really challenge the player. And the game doesn't hold your hand in these areas or throw you a bone to figure out the puzzle, but instead encourages the player to investigate the environment and put 2 and 2 together. And having the spectral round play into a few of them really makes the possibilities of how to complete these puzzles endless. I don't get the complaint that people have about the puzzles, Judge Mathis's opinion on it. He didn't like the puzzles in this game, felt they were a bit too complex. Maybe you just had a hard time thinking forward of how to complete them, because they're about the same level of complex as, say, Tomb Raider. And I'll go forward, you need roughly the same thought process as you would in that game as you do in this game. So they offer roughly the same challenge as Tomb Raider. I don't get why it's a problem here. I don't mind them using the blocks over and over again because they are used in different ways too. So you won't find yourself getting bored with them, and you really have a fun time doing them. And once you complete them, they're satisfying. And I think they're nowhere near deserving of the hate as people make believe. And last but not least, there's the boss battles, which is where you'll fight your brothers. And these bosses, I gotta say, are some of the best of the genre of this caliber. Much like the puzzles in this game, the player is encouraged to really examine the boss and the environment they're in and use timing and whatever is in their environment to basically take down your enemy. Like, you get Malkaya, who's basically trying to crawl after you, and you have to lead him into these areas with this drop-down cage, and you have to lead him towards the cage and drop the cage on him, and then lead him into the meat grinder. There's another where you have to throw these eggs at one of your brothers, Zephinrud, and when the timing is right, he takes damage. That's an area that I feel evolves this game beyond the original. The bosses aren't just run up to them and smack the shit out of them, which I like because they're bosses. They should be challenging. They shouldn't just be whack away till you're dead. And they did a great job here making them challenging as well as making them unique. These are bosses that will stick with you after the game has been shut off. And they really play into the main feel of this game. Besides the main game, there's also the ability they give you a way to basically upgrade how much magic that you can carry, because when you use the magic, you're going to have these little rocks that you have to collect that will give you the power to use particular magic in this game. There's an upgrade that gives you the ability to carry more of that stuff. There's also health pieces scattered throughout the game, and these are very similar to Ocarina of Time's approach. And when you collect a good few of them, they upgrade your health. So there's a lot to do in this game. It's a pretty lengthy game. And if you're planning on doing everything, it's going to take you a good chunk of time. It may not be as long as Ocarina of Time, but still, there's a lot to do. And you're going to have endless nights trying to pull them all off. Now, getting into the problems with this game. I'm going to be honest, I only have two. One of them is, I know they couldn't keep the cut content in the game as they had to cut it to fit on the PS1. But it would have been nice to keep that cut content in there, as I felt it would have added a bit more to the game and a lot more areas to explore in Nosgoth, and would have added a bit more immersive mechanics that, while already immersive, could have really benefited from more. As there are a couple areas I would have really liked to see, like the Lost City. That would have been really cool to have in this game, and the other weapons would have been really cool to have, the other glyphs, and really would have made Raziel feel just as powerful as he already is at the end of this game. And the other thing is that I did encounter some glitches with this game, like clipping, the enemies like getting stuck on stuff. The AI at times does get stupid. Like there was this one boss I was trying to lead into this room to set him on fire, and he got stuck on something when I was trying to lead him to death. Thankfully, no game-breaking bugs like freezing or any of that, but there's small glitches, and I think that may have a lot to do with the fact that because this is a 3D game and you're working with new technology, I think and it's such a big game that they couldn't fit it all into this game and keeping everything in check. And the coding is a lot more advanced than I think they had intended. But that's not to say it's outright broken, because it still plays great. besides those two problems, bottom line, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver is a bigger, badder, and more badass game than its predecessor. It really shows what the team behind it offered and the vision they had for a story that they wanted to tell and a game to go along with it. They did a great job with it. And I want to thank Amy Hennig and everybody at Crystal Dynamics for delivering this amazing game. It delivers that ambition to the table like a fine steak with a glass of blood wine that will leave the player coming back for more. So if you haven't played this and you like the original and were hesitant on it because it plays differently, I highly recommend you give it a play, as it has nowhere near the right that it has being this good. And it makes me excited to see where they go next. Because immediately after this game was released, it was announced a sequel was in the works. So we'll see more of Raziel's adventures from here on out. For right now, though, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, I give this game a 9.7 out of 10. And it deserves it. Therefore gets the Alexandra seal of approval. Definitely one that I think will immerse anybody, regardless if you're a Zelda fan, regardless if you played the original. This is a game that needs to be seen to be believed. So yeah, that is my review for Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And next time I am going to do a review on the Blair Witch Project for ScreamFest, as that's one that I've been wanting to review for a very long time. In the midst of that, though, I am going to work on getting the rest of the parts for the Shadow Man review, as I did beat this game and I do have the review written up. I want to get the other parts done, though, because there are some things that I really want to get done with before I actually get into reviewing that game. And I do have a few films lined up for Halloween this year that I do want to talk about, but that's what's to come right now. I am going to have to delay the American Pie review till next month because of that, but still, it's going to be nice to have all that. But with that said, I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Did you guys enjoy this more than the first? Is this your favorite game in the series? I would love to know in the comments. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.